A look at reactions from the opening of Parliament. President Cyril Ramaphosa delivering his address at the opening of the first government of national unity. EFF MP Carl Niehaus standing by. Mr. Niehaus, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Yes, wonderful you're able to join us. Now, I see a reaction coming through. Some obviously saying that the address by Cyril Ramaphosa, the first government of national unity address, hopeful, optimistic, full of promises, and a focus on the country's economy. At the same time, referring to President Nelson Mandela 30 years ago, in the spirit and the words of the president, expressing how important it is to reconcile this country.
Well, I think it was rather farcical of President Ramaphosa to have used that quote by President Nelson Mandela. You will recall that I've been the national spokesperson of the African National Congress at the time when President Mandela wrote his book, and also when the first government of national unity came about. And the first thing that has to be stated unequivocally is that this farcical so-called government of national unity that Ramaphosa has created now, which is nothing else but a grand coalition with white supremacist parties such as the DA and the Freedom Front Plus, definitely is not a government of national unity. It does not meet the definition of what a government of national unity is, and it cannot be compared with the government of national unity that came about after the elections on the 27th of April 1994. You must recall that the government of national unity in 1994 came about because of the interim constitution that was passed in late 1993. And that interim constitution provided for all political parties with a certain percentage of support to be included in a government of national unity. The African National Congress had 64% of the vote of the elections of the 27th of April 1994. So it was because of that constitution and because the ANC was prepared as the overall majority party to call a government of national unity. In the instance that we have now, the ANC is no longer an overall majority party. In fact, it has been severely punished by the voters of South Africa and reduced to a minority party with only 40% of the vote, having lost 17% from the previous election. So President Ramaphosa cannot talk of a government of national unity. He has formed a reactionary grand coalition with white supremacists. And that is the shame of the situation where we find ourselves now in. And that is the shame of the opening of Parliament address that he delivered yesterday. The reality is that South Africa had a different, more progressive route. If President Ramaphosa and the ANC was prepared to enter into genuine bona fide discussions with black progressive parties such as the Economic Freedom Fighters, the MK Party, ATM, and other smaller parties, we are part of the progressive landscape in South Africa. It would have been possible to create a black progressive coalition to govern South Africa. Ramaphosa made a deliberate choice. I must emphasize he was not forced. He made a deliberate choice to go for an reactionary government a new liberal right-wing government, a government that is now in coalition with open racists such as the Freedom Front Plus, that made as a precondition for their participation in this farcical government of national unity, the protection of a totally racist, unacceptable enclave such as Orania in the Northern Cape. So last night was a night of shame, and it cannot be compared to those words of President Nelson Mandela that he climbed many hills, and when he reached that top hill, he looked back, saw the long distance that he had walked, but also the many challenges that still needs to be traversed. Last night was the depths of the dungeon, in the depths of a deep hole of compromise. It was not standing on a hill overlooking the landscape of South Africa.
Mr. Niehaus, we've seen President Cyril Ramaphosa make a number of promises in the past as well, and it appears as if a lot more promises will be coming through. Now, we've seen your leader, we've seen Julius Malema making it very, very clear that Cyril Ramaphosa has absolutely no plan to transform South Africa for the better.
I'm very sorry. I don't know if we can perhaps take a break and try to improve on the sound. As I'm now engaging with you, I'm unable to hear anything you are saying, and that makes it almost impossible for me to conduct an interview with you. So I must ask for us to try and improve the sound, otherwise I cannot continue with this interview.
Well, I'm going to try and be a bit louder. We will try and go.
I'm sorry. It doesn't help for you to sound. There's a technical problem, and the technical problem is making it impossible for me to proceed with the interview.
Okay, let's go. Let's go for a break.
Disadvantage.
Let's go for a break. Okay.
My apologies, but it's not possible to continue under these conditions. Thank you.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Contact Lenasia Livestock and Poultry for all your sadaqah, akika and kurbani requirements. We offer clean, hygienic abattoir style and refrigeration facilities. Sheep, goats and cows are available at competitive market-related prices, direct to the public. We slaughter, slice and distribute in your behalf. But that's not all. Introducing Meat Masters Halal Butchery, our sister company situated on our farm in Lenasia. Unbeatable prices on lamb, beef and chicken. Lenasia Livestock and Poultry. Livestock is our business. We are Sanha approved. Telephone 011-857-1774. Call now.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Well, the time is just gone 8:23, and we continue with the interview this morning with EFF MP Carl Niehaus on a better line, hopefully. We must apologize for that earlier on. Mr. Niehaus, can you hear me loud and clear now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. I think it's better that we just do it on the telephone because the audio and visual link, the audio was very poor.
Yes. Now, let's just talk a bit about the speech. Now, clearly, there were some key priorities that were outlined by President Cyril Ramaphosa for the next 5 years. We've seen some of the parties like the DA are clearly welcoming the president's speech. But looking at it from the EFF's perspective, we've seen Julius Malema making it very, very clear that President Cyril Ramaphosa has no plan to transform South Africa for the better.
Well, it's obvious, and I think one should take the words of the Commander-in-Chief and President of the Economic Freedom Fighters, President Julius Malema, as the cue on what the view of the economic freedom fighters on this issue is. And that is that this was not a speech of transformation. It was, in fact, a speech with a number of platitudes and nice sounding sound clips, but nothing that will transform South Africa, that will address the huge gap between the rich and the poor, nothing that will assist the people of South Africa to be able to see a future where they can be in control of their own economic destiny, where they can have access to the land through expropriation of land without compensation, where our financial institutions can be transformed so that they will truly serve the people. There are certain priorities that the EFF, together with the MK Party, with ATM, and other political parties, announced yesterday morning in a meeting of our Progressive Caucus. And those are contained in the Progressive Caucus Charter. We said there that we must and shall fight for expropriation of land without compensation for equitable redistribution. We will fight for nationalization of the commanding heights of the economy, in particular the mines and the banks. That we will strengthen our democracy by ensuring the government and all captains of the ruling class are held accountable to achieve a corrupt-free society. You will recall that very little had been done about the biggest financial scandal that we've seen in South Africa, the Steinhoff saga. We know that nothing had been done of any substance about what happened with President Ramaphosa and the Pala Pala farm dollar saga. that we will fight for decolonization of legal and cultural apparatuses in our society as a whole, and that we will emphasize the need for an Afrocentric philosophy of law, that we will fight for free quality education, healthcare, housing, water and sanitation, that we will fight for the industrial development of our African economy, attainment of peace and stability in all the nations of Africa, and that we shall defend and promote the liberation struggle legacy of progressive internationalism. Now, these are the issues, if they were contained in the speech of a president of South Africa at an event such as last night, the opening of Parliament address, that would have made a real difference to the hopes and the projections of what can happen for the people of South Africa. But none of these issues were even remotely contained in what President Ramaphosa was saying yesterday. Not at all. So that speech is a speech of regression. It's a speech of a sellout who is under control of his white monopoly capitalist masters and also under the control of imperialism. Now we need to challenge this sellout president and his sellout so-called government of national unity. And that challenge is one which the economic freedom fighters had taken on head on. And it is a challenge that we are taking on head on together, also with the Progressive Caucus and all the members of that caucus.
Mr. Niehaus, it is clear with the GNU that there are ideological differences. In fact, there are contrasting ideologies between the various parties that have come and formed the so-called government of national unity. And one of the issues that they will differ on is with regards to international relations and foreign policy. And I noticed earlier on, you were wearing the kufiya, the Palestinian kufiya. And when one looks at these ideological differences, and Palestine is just basically one example of the differences that exist ideologically between these parties. And again, your commander-in-chief, your leader, President Julius President Julius Malema, mentioned that there was exclusion as far as international relations goes, because this is a major point of disagreement.
That's true. There was very little said about international relations and the positions that this so-called government of national unity will take. You will recall that my president, Commander Julius Malema, referred to the fundamental contradiction that there is between the African National Congress's supposed support for the people of Palestine and the open support that the Democratic Alliance gives to apartheid Israel. There's a fundamental fault line there. And my concern is that the likelihood is that the DA, that seems to be the tail that wags the dog in this unholy government of national unity, will be eventually directing the policy with regards to the fight for the people of Palestine. You will also recall that President Ramaphosa had very little to say about BRICS. Once again, it is deeply disturbing because BRICS is critical for our international policy positions, for the change that we see in the world from bilateral power relations where United States and Western European imperialism and the massive power of the dollar is being eroded through a multilateral world, a world that is no longer just based on this duality of the West versus the rest of the world. And BRICS played an absolutely critical role in that. The expanded BRICS is even more important. And yet, President Ramaphosa had nothing of significance to say about South Africa's relationship with BRICS and the role that we must play as a nation that we hope that will be progressive in order to be able to assist the developing nations of the world to become part of a multilateral world. Our relations also with China, with Russia, and all of that was left by the wayside because the contradictions within this unholy grand coalition makes it impossible for Ramaphosa to pronounce on these absolutely critical matters if South Africa wants to play its role as an important nation in the community of nations.
Well, Mr. Niehaus, thank you very much for that. I know you and I could engage a lot more, but unfortunately time is of the essence. But we do appreciate you taking time out and providing us with your reactions and comments on the speech by President Cyril Ramaphosa. We wish you all the best, sir. Please take care.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. And all I can say is that the economic freedom fighters has made a commitment in our press statement of the 23rd of June, when it was clear that this unholy government of national unity was coming about, that we will participate in a forceful opposition, a thoughtful opposition, a contentful opposition in all the various legislatures and the National Assembly, and that this sell-out grand coalition will see an opposition like never before. And that will start today at 10 o'clock when the debate on the president's address will commence this morning, and the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, President Julius Malema, will address the National Assembly, the joint National Assembly and National Council provinces gathering, and give his views about this terrible speech that Cyril Ramaphosa delivered last night.
Well, we're going to see you. We're waiting with bated breath. All the best to you, sir, once again. Please take care.
Thank you.
Carl Niehaus, EFF MP, with us this morning, testing reaction or getting reaction and comments, and we're getting a lot more coming through from a variety of political parties. We're going to get Nomvula Mokonyane, First Deputy SG and Member of Parliament, the MK Party Member of Parliament, John Hlophe, and we're also going to get from the ATM leader and Build One South Africa, Mmusi Maiman.
Stability, for progress, for non-racialism, for non-sexism. Only the ANC becomes that. Because remember, even with the GNU, everybody has signed with the ANC. And that on its own shows that credit has to be given to the African National Congress. It was not an easy journey, but it is a product that we must all guard jealously. Thank you.
Under the leadership of the ANC of Ramaphosa. As far as we are concerned as the MK, we are committed to developing rural areas. We are committed to returning the land to the rightful owners, right? And the ANC is clearly not committed to that.
Mr. Cooper, in closing.
You want me to react to his speech?
Yeah, just need somebody in closing. What?
Well, the speech, it's clear he didn't prepare it himself. It's a compromise speech. The mere fact that as he was addressing us, white South Africans, members of the DA, were applauding. It's a clear indication that he did not prepare it himself. They prepared it for him. He was just a conduit pipe, reading what
the GNU are going to agree with our proposals. We can take, for example, issue that is in the ANC manifesto, and we say, let us go implement via motion. You are not leading as the ANC. We are going to help you. Then the ANC will find it difficult to actually reject what they have on their own manifesto. So from a principal point of view, we are going to have these motions that we hope that the GNU is going to look at the principle and is going to look at the individual point that we are raising, and not just the GNU party saying we are outright going to reject because it is coming from the opposition. Because we are not going to reject things simply because they are coming from the GNU. Anything that is progressive, that is coming from the GNU, even President Ramaphosa himself, we are going to fully support. However, we want South Africa to focus on the issues, because if we focus on the issues, we are most likely to solve our problems.
It's lyrical about corruption. Until, in fact, you begin to see funding towards institutions that fight for corruption, fight against corruption, and also that you can't, in lip service, say, well, we'll send Zizi Kodwa, who's out on bail. Let's try to get back to Parliament. These issues, the job now is let's move away from the politics, let's focus on the policy and a program, and then we can begin to say, how do we reset and go forward? If I was in the president's shoes tonight, the focus would have been, how do we turn South Africa into a battery center of the world? Why? Because that focuses all the objectives. In 2010, South Africa saw a 3.4, 3 times higher GDP growth than what we've seen in the last 10 years. Because we had a World Cup, we had a goal to focus on. What is the goal? Don't make it fancy, it's one goal.